Polokwane in the Limpopo province was the place for the Ford Motorite 400, a tough and uncompromising 430-kilometre long race, the sixth leg of the ABSA Off-Road National Championship. Based at the Moropa Casino and Entertainment World and organised by Willie Prinsloo and his able staff at the Limpopo Club, with the route virtually completely new and thus very, very challenging. The National Championship was delicately poised in almost all the classes, with the special vehicles and the production car categories all looking like they were heading in new directions. But then again, in this sport, you certainly don't count them before the commissioner has counted how many points have hatched. For sponsors Motorite, their entry to the sport, now almost 3 years old, has been a fairy tale. From winning a maiden national championship all the way to clinching the coveted title of Best Race of the Year. And the Motorite crew are a determined bunch.
It's been fantastic. You know, we started sponsoring this event in 2005, which was the first year that we entered the off-road motorsport arena. I must say we've enjoyed it immensely, and in fact that year we won the event as for the best event of the year, and we want to win that event of the year title again this year.
And they were going all out to achieve that, judging by the pre-race setup and the rah-rah surrounding the event. But what exactly does Motorite do?
Well, Motorite is the largest independent administrator of vehicle warranties, mechanical breakdown insurance in essence, maintenance plans and service plans in South Africa. It's a very specialist industry.
For the sponsors, everything was raring to go. For the Ford camp, there was apprehension, but they were holding out and praying for a win.
Oh, I sincerely hope so. We say that every race, but it wasn't my favorite race last year because we battled with the marking and we just didn't have a great race. But we like a technical, hard race, so I believe it is going to be like it. The terrain certainly looks rough and tough, and I think Willie normally sets quite a tough event, so the tougher and longer the better for us. So yeah, to answer your question, I certainly hope so.
So the Peter Maritzburg crew was set up and ready to try and unseat the Nissans, but then so was the Toyota camp.
Yeah, the results at the moment are, you know, what's holding us down, and I think we're hoping that it's going to get together in the closing end of the season, and yeah, we're pushing hard to try and get some results for Toyota.
Graniers had a win in his pocket twice, but then conspired to either roll or break the car. No wonder the mechanics were trying to keep the bright side up. For Nissan, well, they were as always on a roll. Duncan Foss had a stand-in navigator.
Yeah, Ralphie's got overseas commitments, so Rich is back with me, but we had a good race, the previous race in Botswana, so it's not I'm quite happy with the situation. He's very good, he's very experienced, so I'm hoping to have a good run with him.
You got a pretty good lead over Hannes and a very good lead over the first non-Nissan. What sort of tactic do you have under these circumstances?
No, we're just going to go and do the best we can, and I'm not really going to worry about the championship or think about the championship. We're going to go and try and obviously win the race and drive as hard as we can, and obviously not take too many risks where we might compromise ourselves, but go as hard as we can to win the race.
Foss, who clinched the last 3 victories in the Northern Province, Botswana and the Eastern Cape, was raring to go, and with a massive 37 points lead over his stablemate Hannes Krobler, why not? In the special vehicle category, the father and son combination of Nick and Ryan Harper and the rather impressive-looking Atlas Copco Bat Spec 2 were also leading comfortably, but the pressure was on.
It's a very important event. The pressure is on, but we're going to take it easy. We don't have to win this race. All we need is to gather points. So we've gone through the car with a fine-tooth comb, and all we can do is have fun from here on out.
And the same went for Total Motorsport driver Shamir Barayawa, who was already doing so.
Yeah, we've been knocking on the door for a win for a long time, and it has to open sometime, I guess. We've been doing quite good this year, and the last race we were leading the race. We had a power steering failure, so that dropped us back to 8th position. So we're hoping this race we should be up there again, and we need to make up some points on the leader, so we need to put him under pressure.
But in the Limpopo province, you needed to have your eyes wide open for the rest of the field too.
Well, the old saying goes, you're only as good as your last race, so obviously we're coming here with some expectations as to what can happen. Looks like we are on a pace somehow. It's a different terrain from what everybody says, but I don't believe it could be that different to what we've had before, which is the kind of terrain that I personally like. So yeah, we're looking forward to a very good race.
Prophetic words. In the specials, the Harpers lead after winning Kluwe and 4 top 5s with only 1 blemish. They had a 24-point breather over their nearest competition. The 6th leg of the Absa Off-Road Championship got underway with a prologue to determine the starting order for the next day's racing. And Hannes Grobler and navigator Francois Jordan led the speedsters away from the line on their 26k jaunt through the Limpopo bush, with Vos and his co-driver Richard Leek also on a mission. The dust would be a huge problem, as this part of the world hadn't seen rain for a while, and it looked like it would be a while still, as the clear skies were supposed to stay exactly like that for the next day too. Castrol Toyota's Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst jumped the gun on the big names and put in a blistering opening stanza to put the pressure on the factory teams. And they got stuck in by catching Ivar Tollefson and Quinn Evans in the 3rd Nissan Navara, which had got its marching orders 2 minutes ahead of them. But it's never over until the round man breaks, and Grobler and his navigator Francois Jordan had other ideas. They kept the pressure on. While Brandon Harkis and Marcel Trethouille were very impressive in 3rd on the prologue.
Right in there. You're going to go under the bridge and go 90 right.
They were 9 seconds behind the national champion Grobler. Their stablemates Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer were also giving it horns. They in turn were 16 seconds in arrears. And it was carefully noted by the other teams. For Kutsela Beskachny and Johan Gerber in the race Sonic's Nissan Hardbody 3-litre, there was no time to note anything. They were flying in Class D and leading comfortably. This part of the world is unforgiving, and you could easily shoot a spaghetti cowboy western movie here if you wanted. For Mark Ronier and Chris Birkin in the Castrol Toyota, it was a shootout in 6th place. While the De Brains, Hicho and Jaap piloted their Micra and Excel dealer team Toyota Hilux to 7th in the production car prologue battle. While the BB Auto Nissan of Arnold Duplessis and Johan Knox was 2nd in Class D, 26 seconds back. Kobus van Tonda and Rian Guapa demonstrated how tough it was to eat dust. They were 10th. With Bevan Bertolt and Robin Houghton trying to keep the right side up, coming by 3 minutes and 26 seconds down on the lead. They were having communication problems. And they just could not make it work. While Vos, with a 100% finish record so far in 07, was just having problems to get going. They were slowish and did not know what to do to rectify the problem. With the world record holder for consecutive finishes, brothers Henry and Maurice Matten right behind them, only 11 seconds back. But there was no doubt that the prologue was a route that favoured the specials, as the first production car home could only take 7th overall, and the next after that 14th. Still, it made for good racing, as Grobler and Jordan were a massive 70 seconds behind. In the special vehicle category, the prologue route was loved by all as Nardus Alberts and Colin Hunter in the Big Red Raptor Bat sped to a lightning-fast 23 minutes and 59-second clocking. But the Harpers, even though they really did not need to, chased as hard as they could and were only 15 ticks further back. The 2006 national champion Alfie Cox had his nav Henny ter Steger holding on for dear life as he powered his motorized bat with its 6-litre Chevy engine over the short hop in just 24:17. With the second Atlas Copco bat featuring defending Limpopo champions Gary Berthold and Jeff Minute just 5 seconds further behind in 4th place and going well. As for Shamir Varayawa and Siegfried Rousseau riding shotgun, the Total Motorsport Porter was in good voice and handling like a dream. The 2005 champion Evan Hutchison and his co-driver Kim Bergman was next in the second motorized bat, about which they raved. Going in car, one can see why the Spec 3 is smooth even over the rough stuff. Colin Matthews and Alan Smith have had a very solid season, and their Century Properties bat with its 4.2 Audi engine was also in fine fettle. Naim Mosaji and Rayon Bodhanya themselves have performed consistently, and their Total Motorsport Jimco boasts a 5.7 Chevy engine, which they make sing beautifully too. In Class B, the Cape Townians Johan and Etienne Besaidnout were leading in the Adenko bat, but they had their work cut out for them. As the father and son, Jan and Hendrik Kraai, in their Regent Racing bat were only 15 seconds behind them. The Kraais have won 4 out of 5 events and were ready to make it 6. With Bloemfontein-based Roacon off-road racing teams Louw de Bruin and Rudy Brits next, in turn 20 seconds further back. In Class S, reigning champions Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn in the Kopanang Hotel Super Team Raceco were setting the pace. With the chasers in the class, Richard Schilling and Chris Davies battling a faulty power steering almost 90 seconds to the worse. It was a testament to the tough route and hard competitive driving. Only 47 seconds cover the top 10. In fact, 2:59 for the top 30 overall. Hard, uncompromising racing, with Alberts and Hunter taking line honours.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Going the extra finance from ABSA. Going off the beaten track to find solutions.
The 6th round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship, the Ford Motorrad 400 in the Limpopo province, continues, and the prologue was tough.
So it was quite rough today. There's was pieces that was very, very rough. Especially the dongas was quite deep, because with the bucky you can't actually see. You think you're in the donga, and then you put foot, and then all of a sudden, yes, it still goes down. So it's very, very deep, and there was some ravines that was a little deep, but I think we went. Yes, I've tried to push it today.
But then so did the leader, who thought it was longer than it really was.
It was quite nice, smooth, but it was very, very difficult to look for the roads because there was no roads. You know, we were first on the road, and I must say it was concentrating the whole 50 kilometers. We had to concentrate so hard to stay on the route, you know. So, but it went very well for us. I think for being first on the road, but I think some of the guys behind us is probably going to beat our time because there's going to be tracks.
Do you think it's going to be a problem tomorrow finding the route?
I don't really think so. I think the first 5 guys that's going to run tomorrow in the front is probably going to battle on the first lap, you know, but the second lap you're going to do the same route. So on the second lap it will be like a highway. So I think the the guys that's running in the first 2 or 3 is probably going to be a little bit slower tomorrow, than today.
For Ford, there was a new old face. Marcel Trethry was back in the big Ford SP with Brandon Harkis.
I'm very pleased to be back. The Ford is fantastic. We had a brilliant run. Just handles beautifully in the corners. Brandon's driving exceptionally well. And yeah, we're very happy with how things are going so far.
So you've been with Brandon before, so you get along well in the car?
Yes, we get along very well. He concentrates on the driving, I concentrate on the navigating, and yeah, we work well as a team.
For Bevan Bertolt and Robin Houghton in the Castrol Toyota, the communication problem in the cockpit hampered their progress.
Disappointing. We had a problem with our intercom about 5 kilometers in, and without communication on such a tricky route, a lot of cutbacks, a lot of turns, just made it very difficult. Obviously we used hand signals, but it's not quite the same. You can't give a driver detailed information.
Speaking to other co-drivers, it looks as though for the first loop, at least tomorrow, you're going to have your work cut out.
Yeah, it's going to be very tricky. I was chatting to the guys as well. It has a disadvantage in that you're never quite sure if you're on the route. You're not even on a track in most cases, you're just on the bare felt. But it also has an advantage in that you can actually, it's relatively slow, you can close in on someone, wait for them just to even just pause a fraction looking for the route marker, and you can zap in there. So I think it's actually going to be some good racing tomorrow. We need a little bit of wind just to help with the dust, but I think we're actually going to have some good racing, a lot of overtaking maneuvers.
Defending national champion Alfie Cox was happy with his progress and his position.
After the gremlins we've had the last few races, we've pulled the 3rd spot overall, and I'm very happy with that. I mean, it's a long way to go tomorrow, so to start 3rd, it's okay. With my 2 opposition in front of me, it's a good place to start.
For the blue, yellow and white Regent Racing outfit, the Class B Championship pace setter, the Cries were in an ideal situation.
No, we enjoyed it. It was quite twisty and ups and downs and lots of trees, but we enjoyed it. No, we went well. I think we went okay. We got lost twice, but other than that, it went okay.
A lot of people seem to think that getting lost is a good possibility on this event.
No, definitely. You've got all these routes going left, right. There's no ways that that you would not get lost.
Richard Schilling was in a hurry to get to town, and no, he wasn't doing snowboarding and looking for a half pipe. He needed the full thing.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a hurry. I've got to go to town to get a hydraulic pipe. We burst a hydraulic pipe about 5 kilometers into the route, so I've driven about 20 kilometers without power steering. That's not the end of the world. I guess we lost a few minutes. Get the car together and go racing tomorrow.
And to get the cars back to racing state, even after doing just less than 30 Ks, is a stretch, as the team mechanics find out to their horror every time after a prologue. But as the Limpopo sun raised its sunny face to Saturday morning, the steeds and their jockeys were all ready and raring to go, to once again do battle with the earth and her surprising humps, bumps, curves and twists and turns. The unexpected, and thus expecting it most of the time. But mostly they were hoping for wind, so that the dust would be blown away on the day. For others, there were some very big frustrations.
It's just a bit frustrating. Yesterday we stopped the time trial, we heard a slight ticking noise, and I was hoping it was exhaust noise, but unfortunately when we opened the engine, some of the hardenings come off the camshaft, which is not good, and unfortunately we didn't have a spare, so we didn't have to park the car. But frustrating, like I say, with Duncan being so far back, us being in 3rd place, it was a good chance for the championship. And but that's racing. I've raced many races before that I've got lucky, and some that I've lost out on, and it's just one of those things. And it's unfortunate it's this time of the year, but what can we say? It's just one of those things that can happen to anybody.
So Harkis and Trethry sidelined after just 26 Ks. But everyone has their battle stories to tell, some better than others.
Everything runs smooth for a change there. Normally we had a little bit of equals here and there, but it went very well. We were pushing quite hard. But remember, that's only the time trial. Today is actually the race, and it's going to be tough, and the positions are very, very close there, so it's going to be very competitive.
And that's the beauty of what the ABSA Championships have achieved over the last 5 seasons. The quality of the racing has improved.
We're going to go and have a good one, eh? Go and have a good race today, and hopefully it comes out well at the other end. We won it last year, hopefully we can do the same again this year.
And with a flag dropping, setting the Rapsa bat of Alberts and Hunter free on what turned out to be an overcast start to the day, the racing was on. The Harpers were next, 15 seconds back. with Cox and Testeja just 3 seconds behind them and chasing from the word go. And the 2006 special class winner Gary Berthold was giving it stick from the start too. The leaders had 6 of the 1 1/2 dozen of the other scenario. They were the first on a brand new route, thus cutting trail for the rest, but they were without any dust ahead of them. So what was easier? Whereas the Harpers would find the route slightly easier, with Alberts and Hunter having tramped down grass and showed the way ahead in the sand. While 22-time national champion Alfie Cox kept them honest by holding station in 3rd place, still just 20-odd seconds off the front man's pace. The Atlas Copco bat of Berthold and Minute was impressive, and the mechanics sorted out their misfire that hampered them slightly on the time trial. With Variawa and Rousseau's 7-litre Porter engine growling behind them and ready for some serious punishment. Hutchison and Bergman were in a hurry, chasing the Total Motorsport team's dust and closing the gap. Meanwhile, Visser and Badenhorst were themselves battling the dust of the 6 specials in front of them, with only 46 seconds separating them. Some spectators had a real bird's-eye view as Matthews and Smith sped by underneath them after 40-odd Ks of racing, and their bat was sounding particularly throaty early in the morning. And the dust was certainly a factor for Mossaji and Bodhanya, who were just 9 seconds behind the Century Property Development's bat. The Ford Motorrike 400 continues.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Overcoming all finance from ABSA. Going the extra mile to get you financed.
Almost halfway through the first loop of 200 kilometers and on the way to the designated service point back at Moropa Casino, Krobler and Jordan were flooring it. Lined up Archie Rutherford and Craig Doubtfire and just steamrolled by them. 2 places up from 14th overall. The Atlas Copco lads could only shake their heads at the burly multiple champion. Brothers David and Gary White were 5th in Class A in the Rubicon 3.5 bat and were driving a controlled and steady first half. The desert stretches were tough and the sun was starting to burn off cloud as the drivers and navs were starting to find out. But what was becoming clear was that the production cars were coming into their own on the latter parts of the route and picking off the specials, as Woolridge and Schulthammer gave us a demonstration of. closing in on targets. Closing in on target some more, and visual almost made, so. The Besaidnotes were still leading Class B handily, but had to keep their wits about them as the production cars started closing in on them. Grenier and Birkin were also very steady, but Grenier admitted that he didn't enjoy the route very much, as he is wont to enjoy the faster, flatter rides more. They were back in 22nd place overall and eating a lot of Limpopo dust pudding. The Raysonics outfit, Labuskaghni and Gerber, were being hauled in by the Cries, who'd made a huge surge up the order. They picked up 3 places already. With the Micro and Excel dealer team Toyota of Hichu and Jaap de Bruin also enjoying the technical nature of the tough route. Tollefson and Evans, winners of the African Heritage Cross Country in East London, were next through. After starting 25th, the Norwegian and English duo was scything through the field. While local lads, the Duplessis and their BB Auto Nissan hardbody, were showing that they know this part of the world very well. The Brain and Brits were flying the flag for Roacon in Class B and were holding station in 3rd place. With Van Tonde and Guapa and the Unifreight Ford Ranger going solidly enough in the SP class. And Bertolt and Houghton chasing them with all they had, but they'd lost their Screamer and Hooter and had even more drama coming. And Duncan Foss and Richard Leek were also not exactly having a great time, just being strangely off the pace. Van Tonde and Guapa were amazed to see the Castor Toyota come from left field, literally. The Zermattens were steady as ever, but were battling a broken stub axle which they suffered after 70 Ks. Their day was about to become even worse. Unfortunately, it hampered him so much that they had to call it quits. Dalmasper, Ramon Besaidnout and Stefan Locke and their Toyota were having a solid day and enjoying the rough and tough stuff. With Class S leaders Gosler and Carolyn making that Porsche engine of theirs scream as they battled their race go along. Thomas Rundle and Brian Roberts had a great prologue and were leading Class E by almost a minute. With the Weichelts, Cliff and Louis just inside the top 40 in their Toyota with its distinctive logo on the bonnet. And Class E chasers Jack Pickham and Lucio Santoro in the 2.5 Ford Ranger trying to close the gap to Rundle and Roberts. Up at the front though, and with less than 100 Ks to go, Alfie Cox had mustered an incredible surge and had passed all the traffic in front of him. The Master Blaster was flying. While his fellow defending national champion Hannes Grobler had gone by no less than 12 cars to get into second. A phenomenal drive. While Michael Whitehouse and Matthew Carlson themselves had done some giant slaying in the region colours. With the former national champion Woolridge and Schulthammer up from 20th to 4th overall, the Ford Ranger was cooking with gas. They were followed by Matthews and Smith in the red, blue and yellow of Century Properties, and they were also having the drive of their lives. Hutchison and Bergman next scooted into view, and they just held station, trying to conserve with an eye on the second loop. Ruacon CEO Peter Ruthven and Deval Boshoff had put together a very solid drive, and after 120 odd kilometers, they were into the top 10 after starting 18th. With Tollefson and Evans up from 25th, providing Nissan fans with a whole lot to shout about, despite having lost their trip meter. With DSP just ahead, Regent Racing's Class B dominators, the Cries were back in control and setting the pace. With Berthold and Houghton battling now without windscreen wipers, providing yet another job for Robin, like he needed more work. Voss and Leek was steady if unspectacular, but were still moving up the batting order due to their consistency. Weichels contending with their dust and trying to maintain a gap big enough for it to settle down. And the BB Auto Nissan of Duplessis and Knox all the way up from 26th to just outside the top 10. A fine display. While the Raconics lads could see Oliver Skachny and Johan Gerber and experienced one or two small difficulties. Rutherford and Doubtfire were down a fistful of places, and they were suffering. Someone had forgotten to fill their water bottles, and the lads were thirsty in there. Rob Walk had the single-seater Super Pave Special going like a Boeing, and had gone from 28th to inside the top 15. Showing some battle scars, Peckham and Santoro had taken the lead in Class E in the forward. While Rundle and Roberts were doing good things with the Bowden Tyre Services Nissan hardbody, chasing after the Ford now. The riverbed was a place where you could really let her rip, and the boys did, van Tonda and Guapa in the Ford Ranger. With the sun beating down on car and competitor, the competition in Class S was hot as well. Gosling and Carolyn still making the pace. With Ruacon's De Bruyn and Brits the filling in the sandwich in the battle of Class S. As they kept Richard Schilling and Chris Davies away from the Kopenhagen Hotel team in front of them. And newcomers Cor van Os and Arken Capers in the 5th Ford Ranger blazed by, going well in Class E, and then finding out about South African off-road conditions firsthand. They got it stuck good and proper. And then the traffic jam decided to sort itself out. A little bit like it goes anywhere on a Friday afternoon in the big smoke of Johannesburg. But with a little bit of help from the friends, a quick thank you, and off we go again. The husband and wife team George and Sharon Barkhuizen have had a solid run in class this year, and after getting the Toyota lighter already, George decided to take the safe route. It was ditto for Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in their Castrol Toyota, with Rudy van Graan and Bodo Berthold right on their tracks. But back at the designated service point after 200 hard kilometers of racing, it was Alfie Cox and Henny Tersteger who had overcome and passed all ahead of them in their flying motorite bat. The co-sponsors of the event and 2005 and 2006 Special Vehicle champions were overjoyed with what proved to be a great drive in very tough conditions.
Okay, brakes fine, everything else fine. Yeah, jump so you can put the fuel.
Yeah, look, it's a proper off-road race, and I'm just trying to learn from the mistake last year. There's a lot of stumps out there and a lot of long thorns. So we got punctures last year after leading and lost the race. So we got into the lead, I think probably about 30 or 40 kilometers out, and we've just played it cool, kept the car on the road and kept out of trouble. And the dust is a major problem, so being in front is definitely an advantage. And we're going to use that for our advantage on the second lap and just keep it tidy and just hopefully bring the car home. We need a win after a lot of small niggly problems.
Hannes Schrobler and his mustachioed navigator Francois Jordan, it was a spotless performance on the first loop. The veteran of track, rally and off-road was shooting for his 23rd win in 54 starts since the 2001 season, and he was eager to keep his cool and stay out of the dust until it really mattered.
Wrong way somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
How's the morning been?
Yeah, very well, yeah. We had to keep it cool. It was very, very dusty. It's just unbelievable. You can't see nothing. So we kept it cool and we stayed behind the guys till we got close to them, and then we passed them, you know. But everything, the car is 100% and everything's going well. And I said to Francois, if we can get into the second loop with a car that's 100%, I think we can do the thing.
Yeah, we've had a good clean run, no problems. We've got a slight whine in the gearbox, so I'm not sure quite what that is, but otherwise the car's running perfectly. We battled this morning in the dust, I suppose, as everybody did, but starting 20th this morning certainly wasn't too clever, and we got stuck behind some of the frames, and it was very, very frustrating and tempting to sort of take some chances, but you know, we had to keep it on the road and make sure everything's fine. But I think our time's okay, and we're having a good clean run.
Tollefson and Evans got some first-hand special vehicle experience as they lost their windscreen and had to drive with goggles on.
Not too bad. Had a puncture. We fell back a bit, but we'll see if we can climb back to the front.
Okay.
I'd say we're driving conservatively to save the car, and hopefully come out with some points, you know.
The front men set off on their final tour of the dust, dense bush and daunting countryside of the Limpopo province. The scene had been set for an enthralling afternoon's racing. Whitehouse and Carlson were coming in to take their 15-minute break, while Matthews and Smith were already on their way out. Force, winner of the last 3 races, brought it home 5th fastest in the production cars and seemed to be driving a clever race, conserving the Nissan Navara. While Hutchison and Bergman clocked the second fastest time for the first loop, only bettered by Matthews and Smith. For Shamir Variawa, the news wasn't good.
Yeah, I believe Shamir's out. They had a problem with the front suspension or the shock, so we're going to carry on and take it to the end. We were going quite well this morning, and then we managed to get a puncture, and I think we did some damage to the caliper, so we managed to do the last 100 kilos, no brakes, so we just had to take it easy and bring it home. Now we'll try and get it repaired and go to the last loop.
And there were many casualties of this rather brutal but fair layout from Billy Prinsloo and the Koepel Club. In Class S, Richard Schilling was his usual controlled but quick self, while Gary Gillingham and Peter van Vieren inched their way to the start of the last loop. The Ford Motorride 400 continues after this.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Going off the beaten track to finance from ABSA. Overcoming all obstacles.
The Ford Motorride 400 in the Limpopo province continues, and after the first 30 kilometers of the last loop, Alfie Cox and Henny Tersteger were firmly ensconced in the first place, overall and of course leading the special vehicle category, with Schrobler and Jordan leading the production car class handling. Matthews and Smith in the back were highly impressive and have been improving with every outing this year. However, Hutchison and Bergman blew by them like they were looking for parking. Woolridge and Sholtham have had a very strange season that started off with a few DNFs, and it was about to continue on very much the same note, with the region crew Jan and Hendrik Kraai keeping the throttle wide open. Berthold and Houghton had had a few small problems but had endured and were up into third in the production car class. With Class D leaders Du Plessis and Knox having their best showing of the season in fourth. Peckham and Santoro were setting the pace for Class E in the Ford. But Grobler and Jordan were just unstoppable at the front and had now passed Cox, who again ground to a halt for the third race out of 6. And that was Alfie's championship hopes blown to smithereens. However, his stablemate Hutchison grabbed the chance and the steering wheel with both hands and did some low flying. He and Bergman were hauling. Matthews and Smith were in second place, all the way up from 8th overnight in the Century Properties Development BAT. The Harpers drove a very intelligent race and knew they had to just finish in the points. It looked like they were going to achieve that. And Tollefson and Evans now with some glass to see out of, going very solidly and all the way up from 25th to 5th. Woolridge and Sholtham had gotten stuck in the only mud patch they could possibly find, and that put an end to a fine duel with Grobler, so their strange season continues. Still, they were on the go again at least. And Berthold and Houghton were flying the Castrol Toyota flag, just looking for a finish. That sticker was working. Clint Gibson and Gary Campbell came from 11th overall overnight to slip quietly into the top 5 in the specials, and the Absolute team were just that. While Whitehouse and Carlson suffered a puncture and then ran out of brakes, but still admirably kept it going. The second loop meant even more dust, and the Space Train teams really suffered. The Kraais dominating Class B again. Naim Mosaji and Rehan Bodhanya 9th in class and putting together a very solid drive. Voss and Leek was super steady and kept things nicely under control. The Weichhards were also super steady, and it slipped past the BB Auto team in their Nissan to lead in Class D, a jump of almost 25 places. With the Polokwane team, Du Plessis and Knox holding on for dear life in second. They were less than 30 seconds behind at this stage. Class E leader Peckham and Santoro had even less breathing space, as they were only 28 seconds ahead of their nearest pursuers. And in Class S, Schilling and Davies had finally taken the lead in the Plastotech Raceco. Despite hitting a donga and injuring his back, Richard was back in front. But Gary Berthold and Jeff Minute were keeping them under pressure after battling some minor problems themselves. The dust was almost unbearable at times and made vision a guessing game. The Parkhuisens, despite, were up into 9th in the production car class and 2nd in Class E. And the Raysonics crew in the white Nissan hardbody were in 10th and 3rd in Class D. The Kopenhagen Hotel crew had a solid run and took 12th in the special vehicle category and 2nd in class. The Moffats, Mark and Stewart in their Bozel Toyota had also quietly worked their way to just outside the top 10 and 3rd in class. A very good run. While Bez Besaidnout and Johan de Bruin had to have a take 2 at this little hillock at the end of the whole lot. They were 2nd in Class B. No such thing was necessary for their nearest challenger, Gil Nel and Sandra Labuschagne, who took their Luke ATE Zarko Truggy through to 15th in the specials and 3rd in class. But Grobler and Jordan were in a league of their own. They clocked the fastest time for the second lap by 7 minutes and were ahead with more than 7 minutes to spare. The Ford Motorite 400 was another milestone in the development of the Motorite tracking system, which was introduced to enhance safety at the beginning of the 2007 season. This system is unique in South African and African motorsport due to the fact that the progress of all the competitors can now be monitored from the race control center at all times. Should a competitor break down, it will be apparent through various checks and systems, and it would also be clear where the breakdown has occurred. The introduction of the red and green panic buttons was a further development in the application of the tracking device. Should urgent medical attention be needed, the competitor presses the red button, but if a vehicle comes to a stop, then the green button is activated, letting race control know that there is in fact no emergency. The system was put to the test when Nandus Alberts and Colin Hunter's Rapsa back came to an abrupt halt with a mechanical failure. The coordinates of the car was plotted and help was at the scene within 12 minutes of the actual stop. At the line though, Grobler and Jordan only needed hands for applause as they won handsomely in 7 hours and 21 minutes. They had a victory margin of more than 12 minutes, a sterling drive, and one of the finishes of the season for the burly man and his trusty navigator. Hutchison and Bergman were just 3 minutes behind and comfortably won the special vehicle battle after conserving on the first lap, a strategy that paid off. Grobler put himself back in the running for the championship.
It gives us a chance again on the championship. The car was just excellent today, but, the team is so professional, and the car was so good. It's so nice to just drive a car like this, and the navigator was on top form today. So, there's nothing better than a win.
And, of course, the modest man had nothing to do with it. Hutchison, on the other hand, knew exactly what he needed to do.
We actually left the pits right behind him, a few seconds behind him, and we needed to get past him because we had Colin Matthews behind us, and on corrected time we needed to get 2 minutes ahead of him. And we couldn't pass Hannes, and we knew we needed to make a gap, so we were under a lot of pressure early on, but we could catch him, we couldn't pass him. I mean, to pass this man in the bush, doesn't matter how rough it is, he's really good at what he does, But as we were running, Hannes was doing good time, so we stuck behind him, and eventually we got the gap we needed. And then unfortunately, I think Matthews had a problem, so we never needed that gap anymore. But we did push to the end. I mean, the last little D-control were 40-something seconds behind him, but to catch him is easy, but to pass him wasn't possible.
Matthews did indeed have a problem, but he and Smith still brought it home for a fine second place, almost 6 minutes back. Tollefson and Evans finished the runners-up in the production car race and were all smiles. They started 25th, can you believe? While Gibson and Campbell took 4th in the special vehicle battle in 7 hours and 44 minutes. For Ford, the muddy story took the cake.
Yeah, unbelievable. If you can believe that you find mud in the desert, that's exactly what we did. For some reason, we've developed a bit of a misfire when we go through water, and going up the long riverbed was quite a lot of water. And yeah, it just stopped in the middle of the bloody sand, and there we were, marooned. Yeah. So we dug and dug and dug and got some rocks underneath, and eventually got ourselves out. But we'd lost the position to fight with Hannes, so that was that. And in the same time, then Tollefson came past in the other Nissan, and that was pretty much it. We pushed quite hard in this last section, but in reality, to try and catch them and get past in the dust is almost impossible. So yeah. the mud got us.
Berthold and Houghton did keep it right side up long enough to finish fourth, and the big lad was a happy man.
Today was a tough off-road race. The traffic was huge, so the dust was massive. But it was the car was well built, and we're happy to come home. And we lost windscreen wipers, so Robin had to get out the whole time to clean the windscreen, so it was very difficult. And we got beaten fair and square, and the guys that beat us did very well. We got caught up in the traffic, and we hope to come fight again.
Krobler's win gives him a shot at a fourth national off-road title, but Foss's steady drive certainly keeps him installed as the favourite on the championship log. With Hutchison's win, he closes the gap, but the Harpers seem to have it all sewn up. Or is there another kink in this year's Special Vehicle Championship tale? For Foss and his regular nav, Ralph Pitchford, there's a 23-point gap over his Nissan stablemate, while Tollefson and Evans are becoming a threat too. And in the specials, the father and son have a 15-point breather over Hutchison and Bergman, with Gibson and Campbell too far back to challenge. It's going to come down to the last two races in both categories. Until then, you keep it on the road, we'll keep it off-road.
That was the ultimate test. The ABSA